Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today Bookopoly will be picking my May TBR. If you are new here, Bookopoly is the way that I pick the books that I read every month, and if you would like to get acquainted with every square on this board and find out the rules of this game, I will link my first ever Bookopoly video up here for you to go and check out. If you have never watched a Bookopoly video before and you would like to watch the whole series, I would advise that you go do that now, as I am about to spoil last month's rolls. So it is time to plan what I will be reading for another month. Last month we did a crazy Bookopoly because we had the owls, and this month there are some things going on that I would like to participate in, such as the Asian readathon. I think the Ghibliathon is happening in May, and then I have a few buddy reads and read-alongs that I'm doing that I would like to keep on track of. So the first thing we do every month for Bookopoly is recap on last month's rolls and see whether I read any of the books. Now, as we did the owls last month, there were 12 rolls but only 6 were mandatory, so I will just be recapping the mandatory ones here. So from last month's Bookopoly, we have You by Caroline Kepnes. This was to read a mystery or a thriller, and I read this one. We had Clash of Kings and also Every Heart a Doorway, which I have returned to the library. They were both to read adult fantasies, and I read both of those. A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers was to read a sci-fi, and I read that. The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski, I think I got that right, was to read another booktuber's legacy book, and I read that one as well. And The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon was to read a contemporary or a romance, and I read that. So we are all good this month. And now that all that is done, let's just get into our first roll. So last month, the last book I will be making progress on from Bookopoly is young adult fantasy, and let's get into our first roll. Oh no, not a double already. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Adult fantasy. So we've already rolled a double. Can't we tell that May is just gonna go so well? So this time the adult fantasy I will be reading is A Storm of Swords Part 1, Steel and Snow by George R.R. Martin. As you guys know, I am hosting a read-along for the entire A Song of Ice and Fire trilogy. The book for May and June is going to be A Storm of Swords. However, if you have the UK editions, they tend to be split into 2 parts. You will have to read both of those over May and June. So what I'm hoping to do is read Part 1 in May and Part 2 in June. So I'm kind of happy that I can read this at the beginning of the month and know that I am on track for that. I won't tell you what Game of Thrones is about because it's like crazy hyped, especially at the minute when season 8 is on, and the day that this goes up it is the Battle of Winterfell. Like, can we believe it? But I have very much been enjoying this series and I am excited to continue. It does take me a little while to get through though, and I do kind of read it in chunks and separate it with other books. Double roll. 9. A chance card, and this one is The Queens of Innisleah by Tessa Grattan. So our second roll was a chance card pull, and if you guys don't know what my chance cards are, they are an even mix of books I'm not very excited to read and books that I'm really excited to read. So this month we pulled The Queens of Innisleah by Tessa Grattan, which is one of the ones that I am very excited to read. However, I am not happy that we're reading it this month because, like Storm of Swords, it's also really big. So what I know about this is that it is an adult fantasy and it is a retelling of King Lear by Shakespeare. And from the inside of the dust jacket, all I can really tell is that it follows 3 princesses who are preparing to fight for their kingdom as war is approaching. So it sounds really interesting, but what I have heard from other people is that it is quite slow, and I do really love slow books, but this one may take me a little bit of time to get through. Third roll. Another double 3. Community shelf. Randomly generate a number and read that book on your shelf. So, roll number 3. A community shelf card. We're having fun this month. We've already rolled a double and 2 cards. So this one is to randomly generate a number and read that book from my shelf. So I have just done a quick count. I have approximately 544 books in total, including ones that I have read and ones on my TBR. So the way that we are going to do this is I'm going to get a random number generator up on my phone, and I will put 544 into it, and then I will count along that number on my shelves. I'm going to go with these 2 first, so I'll count these as like the earlier numbers. This one will be next, and then the books I have over there will be last. Let's say that if I land on a book I've already read, I will read the one immediately to the right of it that I haven't read. And if I land somewhere in the middle of a series, I will either read the first book in that series or whichever number I'm up to if I've already started it. Okay, so random number generator. 436. Jesus Christ. You know what? I'm actually going to turn my camera off while I do this because it's going to take a while. I'm back. So number 436 was at the bottom of this bookshelf, like very nearly at the end of all of the books on these two shelves. And it was, number 436 was book 5 of the Gossip Girl series by Cecily von Ziegler, which are books that I've owned for a very long time and lied that I'm going to get to them anytime soon. So in the month of May, I will be reading the first book in the Gossip Girl series, which is Gossip Girl. And if you guys don't know, Gossip Girl is the book series that the TV show is based on, and it follows a group of, are they socialites? They're like the children of very rich people in New York City. I absolutely love the show, but I don't think the books are very good, so this is going to be interesting. Fourth row, 11. A contemporary or a romance. So roll number 4 was a contemporary or a romance, and for that I will be reading a book I have out from the library, which is Always and Forever Lara Jean by Jenny Han. This is the third book in the To All the Boys I've Loved Before trilogy. If you guys have been here a while, you will know that I do not like the first 2 books in this series. However, I'm a completionist. I want to wrap this series up. It's really quick and easy to read, and while I saw it at my local library, I thought I might as well just get it and kind of get it over with. This is also perfect as it will count for the Asian readathon, as Jenny Han, I believe, is a Korean or Korean American author, so it will kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, because as well as wanting to participate in that readathon, I also really need to be finishing some series. For those of you that don't know, the To All the Boys I've Loved Before trilogy follows Lara Jean, who writes love letters to exercise her emotions when she has a crush on somebody, and then all of a sudden all of the letters that she has wrote accidentally get mailed out, and she has to deal with the repercussions of all of these boys asking why she is in love with them. Roll number 5. A double 5, oh my god. Another young adult fantasy. So roll number 5 was a young adult fantasy, but can we also talk about her? This is the 3rd double that I have rolled this month, which means that I have at least 3 extra rolls for May, and this TBR is turning out to be kind of crazy. But the young adult fantasy that I'm going to be reading is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This is the first book in the Grisha trilogy, and this will also be a reread for me. So I've been mentioning in quite a few videos that I really want to read Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, but I would really like to reread this trilogy. And Jade from JD Rereads was like, you know what, we should buddy read this because I have all of them and I haven't read any, and I keep moaning about wanting to do this reread. So we are going to be buddy reading the first book in the Grisha trilogy this month, and then going forward I think we plan to read 1 book every month until we've read all of the 6 that are currently published. I mean 7 if you count Language of Thorns as well. But this series follows Alina, who I think is a soldier in this ongoing war in this Russian inspired world, and she suddenly finds out that she has powers and is taken to an academy where she will be trained on how to use those powers in the war. Roll number 6. 4. Another adult fantasy. Roll number 6 is another adult fantasy, and like last month I am going to offset the heftiness of Game of Thrones with the shortness of the Wayward Children series. So I'm going to be reading Dynamite, Sticks and Bones by Shauna Maguire. Last month I did read Every Heart a Doorway. Didn't love it, but said I was going to carry on with this series because I think it's just the plot of that particular book that I don't really like. But the Wayward Children series follows children who have been to portal worlds and have had to return to the real world. Some of the books are set in the real world, some of them are set in the portal world, and this is the first book set in a portal world. It is a prequel to the first book and follows Jack and Jill in the underworld that they visited before they ended up at Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children. I'm really excited to read this because I do really want to know if it is just the plot of that one specific book that I don't like, or whether the whole series isn't going to be for me. And as I have quite a few chunky books on this TBR, it's nice and short, so I'm looking forward to it. Roll number 7. 8. a book set in the UK or the US. Rule number 7 is to read a book that is set in the UK or the US. So essentially just not in a fantastical world and in a culture that I am familiar with, so Western culture. And for that I'm going to be reading an ebook on Scribd, and that is going to be Hidden Bodies by Caroline Kepnes. This is the second book in the EU duology. I read the first book last month and I found it so compelling. I loved that book so much more than I thought I would. And You follows Joe, who works at a bookstore, and one day a girl walks into the bookstore and he becomes infatuated with her and quickly starts to stalk her. Now this book is very different because it is told in second person perspective and gives the illusion that you are the one that is being stalked, and I just found that it was so gripping and compelling, and I really like how it used the perspective to twist my emotions to favour the stalker more than the victim. So I'm not really sure where the sequel is going to go because I think it's set in a different city, but I'm really excited to continue. I've heard it isn't quite as good as the first one, but I'm still hoping I'm really gonna love it. And what will hopefully be our last roll. 8. Which is a historical fiction. And finally, my final roll for Bookopoly. Been a long time coming. It took a long time to get to this final roll, didn't it, guys? But that is to read a historical fiction, which is my least favourite genre, and I'm actually running out of them, so I may have to switch that up at some point. But the historical fiction I will be reading in May is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I have heard absolutely amazing things about this, and Rhiannon, especially from Crescent Moon Reads, really loves the books by this author. And this follows the myth of Achilles. I don't think I've read the original myth of Achilles, but I do know that, is it Patroclus or Patroclus, is featured in that myth, and this follows them two closely, and I believe that there is like a male-male romance in here, which is really exciting. I've heard that this is really good, and I don't love historical fiction, but this is kind of outside of the norm of what I've experienced from historical fiction, so I'm hoping that I will really enjoy it. So if by some miracle I managed to get through all of those, last week I did put up a Asian readathon TBR, and I will be mood reading it through the books that are in that video, but I highly doubt that that's going to happen this month. This is going to be a real push for me, guys. So please let me know what you guys are going to be reading in May, and if you are taking part in any readathons. Please also don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish body butter and candle website, the Instagram for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.